Hey, welcome to another episode of the Pastor to Pioneer podcast. I'm here today with Joy. See, I'm already like messing this up. This is not a good sign of what's to come. Not Joy, but Joe. Freudenberg.
Well, the reason you're calling me that, Britton, I just told you what our last name means.
That that
That's it.
Thank you.
That
You're a
was
man of such grace. What does your last name mean for those that weren't a part of our previous conversation?
so Freudenberg is German and it means joyful mountain. So in this case, I'm happy to be called Joy.
So maybe I'll just call you that interchangeably throughout this interview. Joy, Joe. Either way, you'll know who I'm talking
I'm here
about.
for it. It's great.
Thank you for your grace this afternoon. I am glad that you're here today. Joe is in the Cincinnati area. As a Michigan guy, I won't hold that against you that you're from Ohio. It's not the end of the world. But Joe is a former pastor in the Prevailing Model Church for 7 years. He now runs a business of installing sport courts, which we will get into that story. Very fascinating. But Joe, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, Britton. Yeah, super excited to be here. Love what you're up to, man.
Well, before we dive into your story, I'd love just to give all right, what's a 60-second snapshot of who is Joe before we get into the depths of your story.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I am a father of 4 kiddos, and I'm just trying our best to lead our team with my wife, Caitlin. We've been married coming up on 15 years, and yeah, we're just kind of in the very sweet spot, I think, of being we're out of diapers at this point.
Big stage.
And yeah, so our kids are coming up on 12, 8, 5, and 2, and so we're just in a pretty sweet season, man.
So
Yeah.
fun.
So that's what I'm up to on the family front. We do live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been here almost my entire life. And as you mentioned, I have an athletic court surfacing and building business here in Cincinnati. So that's keeping us busy. And then I'm also helping coach guys how to do that too. So yeah, it's been really fun.
I love it. Well, Joe, you reached out a couple weeks ago and we connected on the phone, and I loved hearing your story. I loved hearing the journey you've been on. And after we talked, I'm like, man, you should just retell that, but I'll hit record next time. And so
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you would agree to be on the podcast to testify what God's done in your life and what God is doing and just the wild ride you've been on. So thanks
Yeah,
for doing it.
absolutely. Well, it was great having that conversation with you. I'm excited to do this podcast with you. Yeah, everything you're up to totally resonates with my heart. So yeah, excited to share and help anybody that this could resonate with. Yeah.
Love it. Well, let's start with a little bit of your background. Of your pastor for 7 years. Was becoming a pastor something like you always wanted to do that? Was that like from a kid, like, all right, I'm going to become a pastor? Or how did you end up getting into traditional pastoral ministry?
Yeah. Yeah. I really fell into youth ministry. I went to school to be a teacher. My grades in high school and college were pretty dismal. I was not a good student. I was very excited to play the next level of tennis. So that was, unfortunately, that was my top priority. And then I realized I have to study something if you go to college. That's one of the things you have to do. So
Did you play tennis in competitively in college as well as high school?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Played in high school and college, and then taught for several years. Yeah, after college. But yeah, went to school to be a teacher. And part of the reason I did that was a lot of my family, my mom and my grandfather were both teachers, administrators, and so it was like, all right, I don't want to go to school, but I guess I'll just kind of follow in my family's footsteps. But one thing I did know pretty early was that I loved just working with young people, and so that I realized after throughout college and then afterwards, I don't think I want to be in a classroom setting, but I do want to speak into young people's lives and
Hmm.
hang out with teenagers. I just love teenagers. And I was just, as goofy as they come as a teenager. So I just had a heart for that season of life. So, long story short, we were, Caitlin and we were part of a fine arts drama, youth program, when we went through youth group, and the leaders of that program asked us right when we were engaged to come start that same program at a different church. And I was kind of like, I don't know, but Caitlin was excited about it. So of course we did it. Um, and yeah, so went and helped get this tiny little there's a little country church out here on the east side of Cincinnati, and we just started helping out once a week, and God did something, man, to my heart towards these kids, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a totally different part of the city, that neither Caitlin or I are from, and we want to be here as often as possible, speaking to these kids' lives. So one thing led to another. They needed a youth pastor, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. So over the next few years, I was part time. You know how it is: part time pay, full time energy. I was substitute teaching, still entertaining a teaching career. Was a little confused about that at that point. Teaching tennis, working a bunch of jobs. But yeah, fell into that, and that was such a sweet season of ministry. Just the senior pastor there gave us a ton of just encouragement and a lot, maybe even more rope than we should have been given, to really experiment on what's the best way to lead this particular group of students. It was really sweet, and it really bonded Caitlin and I, and it was a good way to start out our marriage.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Um, Before we dive into that and your transition out of that, I do have like it would feel like a big missed opportunity to not ask a tennis question with
yeah, bring
a
it on.
tennis instructor. Uh, let's say hypothetically, someone is just past the beginner stage of tennis and wants to take their tennis game to the next level. What is the main tip that you would give, hypothetically, of course, to a guy in that situation?
That's right. Well, I might ask that hypothetical person to consider switching to pickleball, which we'll get to. But in terms of tennis, I mean, there is a line that you have to cross, which is really just putting hours in and dollars. So it's very similar. This hypothetical person, Britain, is in the same boat as anyone playing golf. I mean, it's there. There's
See,
a line
that's
you
what
have to
I was
cross,
afraid. I was afraid you were going to say that. I was afraid of that. So I guess I'm going to stay at my very mediocre level of
or start
tennis,
playing pickleball.
which we need to get into. I do love me some pickleball. Um, my kids really enjoy pickleball, and I can still beat them in pickleball, and so that's part of the reason why I still
There
like
you go.
pickleball as well. Before we get to the pickleball part of the story, I appreciate that honesty though. It helps my tennis game or puts it aside and really focus on pickleball is what you're saying, and I think that's good wisdom from you, Joe. Um, but obviously, you're kicking around all these things. You're like, do I teach? Do I have to do tennis? Do I do youth ministry? Like, how did that solve those problems? Like, how did you choose a lane? Did you just stay in all of these worlds for a while? Like, how did you decide which direction you were going to start going?
Yeah, well, I'd say I was deeply confused. I was financially illiterate, but I knew I loved Jesus, and I think at that point, and when you're married, when you're young, and you don't have kids yet,
Yeah,
um, expenses are low, passion and zeal are high, and you can get pretty far with that combination. And so, because I was young and had energy, I really wasn't too worried about working, two, three, four jobs at a time. It's all stuff I enjoyed doing. So it wasn't until we had our oldest, our first son, that all of those like fatherhood, like all those muscles started to like develop. It's like, ooh, all these instincts, like, oh, I think I've heard about fathers needing to be providers for their families, and I think that's what I'm supposed to do. And my $14,400 a year at this little church probably isn't going to stretch it, and something's going to have to change. I'm going to have to pick a lane and figure out how to get that lane to pay me properly. And so, for that reason, and a number of other reasons, our time was up at that first church, and I ended up taking another full time position at another church, here in Cincinnati, and that was a totally different experience. Really sweet, but yeah, that's where things both came into focus, and while simultaneously getting a little bit more confusing.
tell me more about that. Like, what was getting into focus, and then what was confusing about it?
Well, I think the biggest tension was the money problem for our family at that point, was solved. I was all of a sudden making a full-time salary, pretty focused. I was still doing a couple tennis lessons on the side, but for the most part, our bills were getting paid. So from a fatherhood providing standpoint, it was like great. And I was like, oh yeah, ministry has become like, I think this is what I'm good at, and this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. So this is this is the right move. I think where I got just confused and disillusioned is kind of a a buzzword, but it really was that I was really confused on the model itself. I loved the people,
Mm-hmm.
but I was trying to understand where is disciple making
Mm-hmm.
happening, and where are my personal resources being used, both my talents, my money, my time. It got really confusing about, especially around just again disciple making. It didn't seem to be a priority of the model, and of course there would be pushback to that statement. But where the type of fruit that I was reading about in the New Testament was not, I wasn't experiencing it. That's not
Yeah.
to say it was at a zero,
Yeah. I get what you mean.
but I was like, I think that whatever I'm doing here seems misaligned with what I think I'm supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I didn't have a 21st century model for how to like so much of this was, I couldn't articulate at the time.
Of course.
It was just stirring in my soul. It was a real struggle because I didn't know how. Number one, I didn't know how to articulate it, and number two, I felt like if I tried, I would do it badly, and I would like cause division. Uh, and I love these people that I was working with. So yeah, I got really confused. And then, of course, as we had two and then three kids, you're like, okay, even now we need to almost consider a new switch in terms of making money for our family. So what does that look like? So yeah, it was a confusing time, and I knew from myself, this wasn't to put any of my feelings on anybody else that was in ministry, and still to this day, I was like, I don't think I can do this. Uh,
Hmm.
I think for Joe Freudenberg, I need to remove myself from vocational ministry. I'd say the other tension was connecting my paycheck directly to my ministry was a struggle for me, and um, I couldn't. I just started having more and more feelings like, okay, would I stay up late with this person talking about their problems and ministering to them if I wasn't getting paid? Like,
Ah.
we want to say, well, of course, like that's who I am as a believer, but that got more and more confusing. Again, having a family and having in that first church, it was my kids are the youth kids, like, and I mean, we treated them that way, man. That's our family. That's who we're invested in. We're showing up to all their stuff. And then something shifts as you have a family. And so anyway, that tension of uh, would I do the same ministry if I wasn't getting paid?
Mm.
I didn't have an arena to like test that in because I was getting paid full time. So yeah, for those reasons, I was really confused, and I was like, I think I need to get out of this.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where I was at the end of that job.
So when you're saying get out of this, you're saying I need to get out of like full-time professional traditional vocational ministry. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think the money was something I was really concerned about. The tie between the money and my energy in ministry. I really wanted an arena to test how legit I was as a Jesus follower. Essentially, that
Yeah,
was a big part of
interesting.
it. Yeah. So that was, I think that was the maybe the core struggle, and then just in terms of model of ministry, I was not aligned with the church I was working at. And again, I love those people, and we were trying some stuff in our home, in my parents' home, and I was resonating way more with what was going on over here than the job I was getting paid for over here. And so that road's not very long before things start to. So I was like, man, I got to get out of this. That's what I mean by get out of this.
Yeah,
That
no, it makes total sense.
was so strong. And the challenge, of course, was, well, what are my skills? Because
Totally. Yeah.
I I suck at going to school, and I can't. I don't want to be a teacher. I've got a degree to be a teacher, but I don't want to do that. I know for a fact I don't want to do that. And I can hit a tennis ball, but I don't want to be teaching lessons in the evenings and weekends. That's when I should be with my family. So it was very confusing. And so, I don't know if you have any questions about that part up to this point, but I can keep going. But
Well, I guess that's what I'm curious about. Like, because a lot of folks that we work with Pastor Pioneer run into that same issue. It's for very similar reasons that you're talking about, like some discontent with the model, just the weirdness of blending your job with like what ministry you're getting paid for, even just like, am I actually making disciples? I mean, those are all so common. And so it often ends up in a similar place that you were at of like, okay, now what do I do? And so I'm curious, like how did you navigate that?
yeah.
You're clear on what you don't want to do, but how did you navigate into, okay, this is what I do want to do?
Well, I had a friend who had helped me with some of this worship ministry that we were doing through our home, and he actually flips. He doesn't have this business anymore, but he flipped stuff on eBay at a really large scale. They like built out their entire house. Their whole property was flipping stuff on eBay. So they had massive garages with rugs, and we would go up to the outlet malls and we would stuff a 15 passenger church van. We'd take the seats out of the van and we'd just stuff it full of pillowcases and costumes and backpacks from Pottery Barn and West Dome. And then we would go back to their house and just flip it. It's
Just,
such a crazy
oh,
business.
hold on. So I'd imagine, did you get pretty good at knowing like this item is gonna sell? This item is gonna make some money.
Well, that wasn't up to me. I
Okay,
was very much the picture taker. This guy was he had charted he was with me on my journey, and just kind of counseling, just an older brother who was faithful to hang out with me and just listen to me struggle. He's like, look, I can give you, if you need like a little bit of a breather and a place to land coming out of church work, then I think I can give you a full-time job for a little while, but I don't know how long it'll last. And I was like, yeah, I really do think I need to leave, and so that was the only option I had outside of going back to tennis, back
wow.
to teaching, and so
What
he was really gracious to me.
what was that season like for you of just like catching your breath of like, okay, I don't know exactly what's next, but I'm out of this to give me space to think about it and to figure things out. What was like going on in your own heart and mind during that season of working with him?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was pretty depressing. Yeah, I was really letting go of what I had grown over the last 7 or 8 years to really mature in leading.
Wow.
Uh, and so it was deeply confusing, and I did not know what I was doing. I was in this guy's basement, no windows, just rows and rows of shelves, listening to worship music, really crying out to the Lord. I mean, I'm picturing myself right now as we're talking, just sitting in there. I'm very grateful for the work um, that he gave me, but it was very hard. I did not know what to do. We continued to do that worship ministry, but I really didn't know where I was going to go. And it was actually a blessing when he told me, hey, it was about a year in. He's like, hey, I think the time's up. The business literally can't afford, like, you're not supposed to, like, this position that you're working really should not be supporting two or three kids, family of five. And so it started to hurt his business, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I gotta figure it out. So that led to the next
I'd love to
season.
hear a little bit more about that because I think a lot of people like are in that when they're in that spot, there is that that grief, that almost depression for a lot of people because your world shrinks. Like you're used to being on the stage and now you're not. And I mean, I'm picturing that dichotomy of you're up in front of all of these kids and youth and stuff and like and now you're alone in a basement with no windows, having no influence on anyone with a lot of your day. I'm just imagining what that does in one person's heart. And um, did you find like the Lord met you in that? Did He minister to you in that? Like what were those seasons like when you're like crying out to the Lord?
Well, I would say that yeah, it was Lord, what the heck is going on? I've got a growing family. I think we might want to have more kids. I think we had two kids at that time. Yeah, we have got two kids. We want to have more potentially. I know that I'm not done doing ministry. But Lord, how does this work? And it was about that time I started reading. I think one of the benefits, Britain, was that it freed me up to do more research, and start to try to put some feelers out to anybody that may have answers to these questions that I was just now starting to be able to articulate. And that's when I was, got into books like pagan Christianity. I read Letters to the Church that was coming out right around
Yeah.
that time, and it was putting some words to what I was feeling. Some of those books had a more divisive tone maybe than others. I think Francis Chan's Letters to the Church felt like it resonated the most
Hmm.
with what I was feeling at the time. So I was able to like unpack this with my friend. I mean, we're both sitting in the basement, and I was able to start unpacking this. And he was just gracious to be a good friend. But yeah, I think it was really just God brought me into the basement and let me feel like what life was like being outside of what I was used to. And there's a lot of good things about that.
I have found that to be more of the norm than the exception. And I mean, so many people we work with, like the seasons like varies. It varies in the length of time that it is. But if you look at pastor to pioneer as a guide, as a pathway, there's something about that too. The wilderness, the bottom of the basement,
Yes.
that God's doing stuff in you before you get into pioneering what's next. And I think we just miss out on stuff, and it would impact our pioneering negatively if we try to skip over that two stage. And so I'm always fascinated to hear how common that is for people and what the Lord did in it. So I'm really grateful just of your honesty and your vulnerability in the midst of that
Yeah,
uh, tough season.
absolutely. Yeah. So, to keep the story going, I got to the end of the rope really with he's like, you got to go. I was like, okay, I get it. And so he gave me kind of like 6 weeks, and I felt so strongly that instead of just like panicking and cleaning up my resume and shooting every possible a note to every possible person I could think of for any job, we did just fast and pray for about those first 2 weeks, and just said, God, like bring something, and nothing came initially, and then after, but those 2 weeks were really sweet. It really bonded Caitlin and I. Like we're same old. Whether you're working in ministry or not, like the Lord is faithful, and He's the one we're leaning on. And it was like, all right, God, what do you have? And the very first person I cleaned up my LinkedIn, I hadn't touched it in, I mean, years and years. And the first person I sent a message to was an old family friend who owned a biomedical solutions company where they make, replacement parts for IV pumps. Really exciting stuff. And I was like, okay, they're like 5 minutes from our house. So I was like, I'll just shoot this guy a message. And he got back to me. It was like 10:30 at night. It was the first person I reached out to. And he said, hey, do you want to come in tomorrow at like 9, and you can just like walk through? And so that was like amazing. God provided a job. I went through there and I took this job that was 5 minutes. Again, nothing to do with my skill set. Zero, zero. And I took the job. It paid the bills, and that was the arena I needed, Britain, to test uh, some ministry, like the whole, like, if I don't get paid to do this, am I just gonna give the cold shoulder to people? Like, if I hear somebody's problem, am I gonna shift to like thinking, it's not my problem? And that happened. I mean, that was a very real test. I
Mm.
started to connect with my coworkers, and just yeah, it was I was basically putting plastic pieces together, for IV pump replacement parts, eight
Wow.
hours a day. So it's like doing essentially doing a very easy puzzle, 8 hours a day. And
Over and over and over, the same puzzle.
that's right. Yeah, there were like four puzzles, but yeah.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, and so what I realized was that this job gives me 8 hours a day to put headphones in. And
Mm.
so I realized after a few months, like, oh my gosh, I this job only takes 20% of my brain capacity. So I could literally go to school on any subject. And at the time, what I was really confused about was, we talked about the church model stuff. So church stuff, disciple making. The second was that financial literacy piece. Like I wanted to understand money better. I wanted to understand what God thinks about money. I wanted to understand how rich people think about money, and what to do with it, like how to have vision for it, how to not be corrupted by it, like all the things. So we've got church, financial literacy, and then how to be a good dad. At that point, Caitlin was pregnant with our third, our son Charlie, and so I was like, man, I'm 2 kids in, 3 kids now, and this whole fathering thing isn't nearly as intuitive as I thought it would be. Like how do I level up here? And so I just listened to any podcast, any audiobook that I could, on those three subjects. Started with Dave Ramsey, fell into there's a podcast called Abraham's Wallet, Dad Tired. Some of these podcasts were just super helpful to me. Yeah, just binging Francis Chan stuff, trying to understand what he was doing with some house church stuff. And, yeah, it was really fruitful. I started to like, okay, I'm finding some people that have some answers here.
Wow. So how long did you stay at the pump
IV
production
pump
place?
place.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, it was about 2 years. Yeah, it was, and
Wow.
that was through COVID. So, throw that into the mix too. It was like,
Gosh.
okay, man, I'm in the wilderness. I'm coming out of the basement and into COVID, and so yeah, it was. I think in the way that we're just, for this conversation, it was actually really helpful for me to have a lot of space.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so then you're like, I got to get out of here. I've done these puzzles too many times. These parts, I get it. I'm done. Like, how did that transition into
No,
to
what
what's
what
next?
happened? I mean, I was still confused. I didn't know what to do with a career. So what I was doing was I was listening to these podcasts, and on the Dad Tired podcast, I heard a guest on his podcast, talking about all three of those subjects that I was listening for, trying to get answers to. He talked about all three subjects in a 45-minute podcast, in a way that integrated all of them, and just like bam, one of those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, this is totally for me. And at the end of the podcast, that guest said, we've got a nonprofit called 1,000 Houses that's based in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, this is in my city. And the podcast was based in like Portland or Seattle or something. And I was like, oh my gosh. So that guy's name is Jeremy Pryor. So I reached out to Jeremy through the 1,000 Houses website and just said, "Can we please get coffee? Like, please."
Please, please.
And in true Jeremy fashion, he said, "I don't know. I want you to come to my front porch and we'll have a glass of bourbon if you drink bourbon." I was like, "Okay." I was not. I didn't drink bourbon. It's like, who is this guy? This is a weirdo. But I went, and that changed everything. That changed everything.
Why did it change everything?
So as I got more familiar with Jeremy and just observed his life and then some other people's lives in that community, I was watching people truly integrate faith, family, and business in a way that, like, the best way to describe it is, man, these guys are so kingdom minded that they are starting up these businesses almost as a fundraising tool for their family's nonprofit. So and a lot of these guys were ex vocational ministry guys, and so they've got a heart for the kingdom, and they're like, we're gonna start businesses, we're gonna impact people through our businesses, and then we're gonna profit big time from our businesses in a way that allows us to be maximally hospitable. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to some of these people's houses and they're just making 20 steaks for their friends and family and those that they're trying to reach out to, just spending loads of money on food and hospitality in a way that some might see reckless, but is like the most invitational environment. And watching them, work harder than a lot of believers that I know. They're staying up every other weeknight. They're up leading a Bible study of some sort or a discipleship group that's all run out of their household. It's not tied to a 501c3 officially, a church building or anything like that. I was like, I had never seen that before. And so I felt
Wow.
very blessed that that kind of thing was happening in my city. But here I was, with these puzzle pieces in my hands. Like, I see what you're doing. I want that. Um, can you help me, please? And so what that led to was, it was a really cool conversation. Jeremy said, "Look, 1,000 houses needs kind of a rebrand and a refocusing of a few things. We're shifting more to a coaching model. I think with your coaching background and some of your ministry skills, you'd be a good fit for that. Why don't you come work for 1,000 houses for a couple years max? But here's the thing, because I knew I didn't want to be back in vocational ministry. He didn't really want that for me either. He said, at the very least, we're going to make this a bivocational thing. So you work for us, and then I will personally mentor you on how to build other income streams that could lead to what you're experiencing here in our community." And I was like, yeah, I'm in on that. So that's exactly what happened. I could tell you more details about that, but that's what happened.
I love that where Jeremy not only gave you vision that resonated with your heart, what the Spirit was stirring in your heart, but gave you practical next steps to be able to like walk with you and go, oh, and this is what it can look like. Let me help you out with that.
Well, and financial runway. Like I think that's I imagine
Amazing.
that for a lot of your audience, there's this question of financial runway. If
Yeah.
I leave, I'm either going to excuse me, I'm either going to have to get a job that doesn't fit my calling, that I'm going to feel stuck in because it's going to take all my hours, or yeah, or I'm going to need to find somebody that's going to help me make this transition. And I feel so called to see as many people as possible experience the second. We need believers, older believers, mature believers that see somebody that needs help and say, "I will help you make this transition." And I've seen
Love
it happen multiple times now. It's not
I
as
love it.
uncommon as some might think. But yeah, that's what I was very, very blessed to experience that.
So he's coaching you then in multiple streams of income. Like what were some of those streams of income that he was coaching you in?
Yeah, well, I think for me it worked out really well. So Jeremy and 1,000 houses, like we're really trying to help fathers experience three types of businesses actually. Freedom business would be a business, usually a service-based business that would allow you to that would allow you to make your previous income. So, but you have control over the time flexibility of that. So that could be a number. It could be plumbing or remodeling, or it could be digital marketing. It could be a lot of different things. And then out of that, um, as you're working in that business, you're looking for an industry problem that you could help solve. And that could lead to more of a scale business, which would be the second type of business. And then the third one would be a legacy business, where that usually looks like something like a real estate portfolio, where you're buying a rental property, and really collecting assets for your family and for your ministry efforts, to gain even more financial freedom and strength, and just continue to leverage it for kingdom activity. So that's like the basic textbook description, but the way that fleshed out for me was, you know Joe, you should consider starting a business. Like, what business do you want to start? And I started with a pickleball coaching business. I knew how to teach tennis. I was like, well, pickleball is way easier. Pickleball is exploding.
So hot right now.
Like, I loved the culture. It was so much more inviting than tennis culture. And I was like, man, okay, let's do that. And so I did like corporate events and taught lessons at parks and stuff. And it was really fun, and it made no money. Well, so I remember at one point the advice that was given to me was, Joe, if you're going to do something in the pickleball industry, you need to find a transaction that's happening that's a high dollar amount that you can get involved in. And if that doesn't exist in that industry, then you probably need to shift industries. And that was really, really helpful advice. And I was like, okay, well, what? I don't know anything that exists in pickleball that's like really high dollar amount. And Jeremy was like, well, I just had a pickleball court built in my backyard. I know what that cost me. It wasn't cheap, and you could just consider, if you wanted to, you could just compete with those guys. There's a lot of pickleball happening, and I was like, I'm not a handy guy, Britton, so I was very intimidated by the construction. And I was like, I don't know. So I kind of like backed into my pickleball coaching. It still didn't make money. So I was like, all right, I'll at least call some paint suppliers or something and start to go down this road. And that led to, because at that point I had nothing to lose. I mean, but at the same time, it was like, I need to find something. My 2-year window is coming to a close. I
Yeah.
need to be faithful to what we said here. So I got more and more aggressive about figuring out the court building uh, idea. And I reached out to another court. I was very naive. I reached out to another court builder in my city and said, hey, would you get lunch with me and tell me about your business? Because I think I want to do it too. And
I want to be a competitor viewer, so will you give me all your
yeah,
secrets?
can you tell
Yeah.
me all your trade secrets? Yeah. But this guy, older guy, I owe so much to him. His name's Rusty, and he was on his way out of the industry, or at least in the twilight of his career. I think he saw my ambition. He was like, you know what? I'll have lunch with this guy. So he agreed to have lunch, and he said, look, the construction gap is a real thing. We've got um, a lot that goes into this business, and you're going to have to figure out how to overcome that. That's a big gap for you. But I also have a gap in my team this year. This was March of 2022, I think. Yeah, 2022. And he said, why don't you come work for me for a summer? And if you really want to start your own business, like, you've got my blessing to do it. And so that's exactly what I did. I was like, I mean, let's go. I'll work for you, learn the business. And I almost quit multiple times. It was very hard work. But we got to the end of the season, and that was it. I did my first residential pickleball court on my own that fall. Then it got cold and I couldn't do any more, but I got a taste of it. And I was like, oh my, I got a check from the customer. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, if I could just do this once a month, this would change my family like forever. And so then next year, just figured it out. It was very hard, very confusing, and a lot of hard work. But yeah, we had a great first year, and basically almost tripled my income from the previous year, my first year of business. So that was massive. And one more thing before we take a little pause here, but you had asked what the advice was to me from Jeremy. So at that point, we also, around our first year of business, had we were about to move from, actually, the townhouse that we were in. We were just moving into the same neighborhood into a single family home, which is a bigger house. And I was like ready to put it on the market, because that's what you do. You sell your house so they have money to buy a house. And some of the advice I was given was like, whoa, like, let's at least consider keeping this thing and renting it out, and having your first real estate asset here, and see what happens with that, and see if you can make it work, buying your new house and keeping your old house. And so I took that advice. I had no idea what I was doing, but again, I had some great mentors around me that really helped me. And we did that, and then we ended up doing that again when we left our last house. So those were some of, just to give you an idea of like, man,
Awesome.
those were some of the lessons that I'm so grateful somebody stepped in and helped me with.
Amazing. So you've been at this now a couple years. Your business has been going. What does it look like now? Well, what does the business look like now?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're entering our fourth year of business right now. So this is what, February 2026. And yeah, we had a great second year. We went from, so our first full year of business, we did really well. And then our second year of business, we went from court surfacing, so like painting courts, and fixing some cracks and then painting courts. That was like what we did. And then our second year, I took some more risk and started becoming basically a general contractor for our jobs, and we would build from the ground up. So we would take care of asphalt and concrete. And so our second year, we got up to 7 or 8 employees, and now, and last year we retreated a little bit. I didn't love the court building from the ground up. We still do a little bit of that, but we went back into just surfacing. There's so much work
Wow.
there. But then this year, in this off season, well, let me back up a little bit. We were able, at the end of last year, so at the end of 2024, we had a great year. That was the year we built courts from the ground up. And I had been praying for years. This goes all the way back to the basement, flipping stuff on eBay days, where I was like praying, like, God, if somehow, some way, could you give us a property where we could just host worship nights? We just have enough land to do all kinds of ministry and retreats. And I think a lot of people have that dream. There was a house though, and we live in a suburb, but right in the middle of like Marshalls and J.C. Penney and Big Lots, like there's this farm plot, and I had always prayed about that house. I mean, I would drive past it twice a day, going to and from my puzzle piece. I was just every day like, God, please, like, can we figure out how to get this? And we never did. But at the end of 2024, it was at the end of the season. I was driving down a road, really close to our house, and I just felt like the Holy Spirit told me to take a right down this side road. And I knew that we needed a warehouse for the business at this point. We were still operating out of my garage, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. And I took a right down the street, and there was this little farm, a little hobby farm for sale, at a great price, little log cabin, a massive outbuilding, and little horse stables. I was like, I think we could swing this. I think we could do it. It was very scary, but we did it. And so we've been here almost exactly a year.
Amazing.
Like all the dreams that have been pent up in my soul for ministry through our home, we just tested them. We're pretty tired after last year because we were like, oh, let's do it all.
Yeah, totally.
We probably went a little too hard, but yeah, God's been really faithful to like that journey of uh,
Amazing.
deep confusion to a business that I'm very humbled. It is thriving, and we just took on a partner this off season who's the first guy I ever coached to start his own business, his own court business.
Amazing.
He's now my partner, and super aligned on all of the ministry stuff we want to do together. So
Amazing.
yeah.
I want to circle back in a minute to just the business starting coaching in a minute. But before that, I'd love to hear more from you about what does ministry look like now? You were asking a lot of ministry questions when you left, when you're flipping stuff and just listening to podcasts, all that. And now you're starting to see the beginning parts and some, fruition of those dreams. How is it different? How is ministry different now?
Yeah, well, I'd say I have a lot of time freedom, so I can kind of talk about just a few things that we're doing. Time freedom doesn't mean that you're working 10 hours a week. I'm still working 50, 60 hours a week, but I get to decide when I work, and I get to slide in the ministry stuff in its appropriate slots in my week. So like just little things like instead of starting the day at 7, I start the day at 8. We wake the kids up at 7:30. I make them breakfast, and we use the Lectio 365 app for our devotions, Caitlin and I, in the morning. I usually just run it back, in my own words, to the kids at the breakfast table. And if that takes an extra 10 minutes, like, the guys can get started without me, and that's a blessing. So there's that. And then on top of that, I've got a discipleship group I'm running. I try to do that in our off season. So we do like a 6-month discipleship group with 3 guys. Would love to talk more about that. That gets me so jazzed. But then we also host a house group. We're attending a church in over the Rhine, which is an urban part of our. It's really just downtown. But we're leading a house group through them, and they're very we're very impressed by how they're bridging the gap between kind of the prevailing model, and really valuing what's going on in living rooms outside of like your typical
Cool.
small group.
Cool.
So yeah, we're leading that, and then I've got guys nights I lead on Thursday nights. We've got a pickleball. So in that barn I told you about, we built 3 pickleball courts, which has been
Sounds
super
right.
super fun. But yeah, so just having people in that barn. We have a kickball league that we invite non-believers into in our field across the street here, and yeah, just doing a lot of just anything that we're excited about. I think the biggest thing though is just our disciple making groups are, just trying to figure out how to multiply disciples, is what we're most
Wow.
excited about.
What is that? What does that look like? What does the discipleship group look like for you?
Yeah. So basically, the idea is that this is the way I think about disciple making for me and for Caitlin, for our family, is everything that we're doing. We like celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles in the fall. It's like, if you look in Scripture, it's like such a fun celebration. So we like leverage things like that, or the kickball league, or any of the things I just mentioned. And throughout the year, I'm really just looking for 3 guys. Like, who are my God? Who are my next 3 guys? And so the whole year is really designed around finding 3 guys for me to disciple, and that usually starts in October and then goes to. I'm about to wrap this group up in March. So it's about 6 months. So the way that we start that is a 24-hour getaway with the 3 guys, because they generally would know each other, but maybe not super well because they're coming from different parts of my network. So we do a 24-hour getaway, and then and the way that we could dive into the details of what that looks like, but it's really to get relationships going, and then also do a couple trainings. So then the 6 months, every other week we meet for a training, and so the way that we're doing discipleship and disciple making is, instead of taking somebody through a intro to Jesus or Christianity, a book, or like a 6-week class or whatever, we're really operating under this idea that, as Joe, Jesus has revealed himself and his ways to me in really personal ways,
Yeah.
and I'm not obeying Jesus well in all the ways, but there's a few things that the Lord has taught me to obey Him well. And if I feel like I have something impartable, then I'm going to make a list of. It's really just a catalog of trainings. So let's say, Britton, that you're one of the 3 guys. You come to my house, or we go to B-Dubs or something, and it's an hour and a half, and I'll just say, all right, guys, we're going to hit this training on repentance. And so each training is a topic, a text, and my testimony.
Hmm.
And so essentially I say, here's the topic, guys, here's repentance. Here's a few instances in my life where I've had to repent. And here's what Scripture has to say about it. Let's talk about the Scripture. You guys tell me, what does repentance look like in your life? And then, yeah, that's the training. Like, and so I just give anything I can. It's not perfect. It's oftentimes it can be a little clunky, but it's like I'm giving you what I got.
Love
And then,
it.
yeah, so that happens every other week. And then once a month I get together with the guys one on one, and that we call those coaching meetings, where, so the training meetings are very proactive, and the coaching meetings are very reactive. So if you're coming to me for coffee, and this makes it really sustainable for the disciple maker. Um, all I'm giving you is things that I'm excited to talk about. I don't have to like study beforehand. I just
Yeah.
get to tell you what Jesus has done in my life and help you
Love it.
follow Jesus in those ways. So, that's kind of the blueprint we're operating under now. And then you just like they're all coming over for brunch this Saturday, and you just
That's so
do
fun.
whatever for Sabbath dinner on Friday, and yeah.
So when they come to you on that once a month coaching meeting, they're kind of driving at what they want to talk about, stuff that's burning in their heart. Is that what they're leading?
Yeah, generally that's what I do. One thing we're trying right now is actually, with the guys' permission, we send a survey to their wives and say, give them I really like this framework. It's I like, I wish, I wonder. I learned this from my friend Blake. So it's like a good way to, when you leave an event or, you do a podcast with a guest and you're like, when I look back, I liked this. I wish this happened, and I wonder what would happen. So you give the wife these three questions for their marriage. I like, I wish, I wonder for my husband and in the way that he is a husband, a father, and a spiritual leader. And then they send me the answers to that, and the husbands get to see it too. It's not some secret. But we get together and we say, all right, man, this is what your wife is saying. She's probably the most trustworthy person to tell us what we need to be talking about. So we'll use that as a guideline for the
Cool.
coaching too.
That's awesome. I love what you're doing. How has your business been a catalyst for disciple making?
Ooh, that's a big topic. I'm in the middle of really trying to understand, you know, you know, transparently. I've really tried to figure out how to do discipleship well with the
Mm,
guys in my business. Probably
mm,
like a whole nother podcast on just that one topic, but um, I'd say that where I'm at right now is I want to exemplify the ways of Jesus, and not force anybody as an employee um, to opt into a discipleship program. That's not what this is. It's work, and we have amazing core values, and we have a ton of fun and all those things still. But yeah, I'm not probably not the best person in real time right now to give any guidance on that. I think that, yeah,
well,
that's a real.
I think you are in the sense of like that's you're just articulating the challenge in that, and it's not as like the nuance, the hurdles, like I just think sometimes we have this idea like if I just start a business, then we'll all gather around at lunchtime and do a Bible study, and like I mean maybe, but maybe not, and just the difficulty. So I just appreciate the honesty, honestly, in that. Um, Oh, yeah, I do want to circle back before we run out of time here. I want to circle back to just the business aspect because again, we work with a lot of folks that are making this transition, and I would imagine some of them are like, starting a business feels like a ginormous risk. I don't know that that's a good idea for me. What would you say to that pastor who is stepping away and like whether they should consider starting a business or not?
The first thing that comes to mind is, as a pastor, you generally have an unfair advantage in the marketplace as someone who has really excellent soft skills. So whether that's sales or just word of mouth marketing your business, the way that you talk about what you do, and the way that you relate to people, like your relational connection abilities is way higher than you probably realize. It's
Mm,
just you've had more reps than anybody in any other industry on how to just have conversations with people. So I think the encouragement I would give is, and that surprised me. I was like so nervous about sales calls at first, and then I realized pretty quickly like I think people, generally like to talk to me, and I think they feel taken care of by
yeah.
me. I think they think I'm pastoral. It's like I am. So, you do have a set of skills that's kind of pre-built into who you are as a pastor generally. There's also a hard reality to that, which is sometimes you don't have the hard skills. And so I think that's really the question. But I'd say in a really general sense, there's a couple things with, what do you believe about money? That, like I said, that was a big part of my journey is what do you believe about money? Are you simply trying to replace your income, or do you have a vision for your family? And has God given you a vision for ministry that actually demands that you figure it out? You know, and God, one thing that I think I believe this at close to a 10 out of 10 is that God will give you the resources that correlate to the vision He's given you. It's very much like a parable of the talents, you know, truth. If you're faithful with what He's giving you now, maybe right now you're thinking, I don't even know where to start. But even that situation is a talent that's been given to you. What are you going to be an active learner and push to go try, like, just work really hard to have as many coffees as you can with people that seem to maybe be winning more than you in this area. That's how you, I think that's the first step is you know just being faithful with where you're at, and then God will just keep, oh, you've been faithful with this, let's go here.
Love that. So you found yourself now actually coaching others in starting these court businesses.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. Like, what does that look like? Who's the ideal candidate for that kind of gig?
Well, I would say it's looked like this. Whatever's happened to me, I feel so blessed, Britton. I really do, by the people that have poured into me and given me runway, given me some hand holding that made me feel like really you would hold my hand at this level. Like, oh my gosh, I want to give that to people that are in a similar spot. So right now, so far I've coached about 12 guys, and most of them are all. Let's see, all of them are believers. I'd say 90% of them are pastors or people that are either making this transition, doing this bivocationally, or are in a really similar boat. Like they just, they share my story. And so we're having a blast. We're actually going to get to, 8 of us are going down to Atlanta this next weekend, and having our annual meetup, and just like sharing, wins and challenges on the family side, on the business side. So that's my target guy. But I also do a lot of like, consulting and helping guys. We do like little 2-day trainings. But the way that the training works is, if you decide you want to do a court building business, come hang out with me. A lot of times they'll stay with our family, and just spend as much time together as we can. But lots of truck time, working on real jobs. And then we just help you with the marketing and sales, get your first job, and then send you back to your city and coach you for 6 months
Come
through
on.
video chats, and everybody's in a group. It's been really fun.
So you are Joe, from pastor to pickleball court builder. That's what I'm hearing? And you help
Yeah,
others do the same. I
that's
think
right.
it's fantastic.
That's it. It's been a lot of fun, man. Yeah, that's
Dude,
it.
I'm so pumped, and I think for those listeners that are, asking that question of like, hey, what do I do? And they want to kick the tires on maybe this direction, because I would imagine probably nobody has, you know, building, installing, and resurfacing pickleball courts on the top of their what's
This is great.
next list until they hear this. Uh, and they want to reach out to you to get some more info and talk, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, they can go to courtprocoaching.com. That's probably the easiest place to find me. And then
Courtprocoaching.com. Great.
that's right. That's right.
All
Yeah,
right.
and you can get there's just a landing page that kind of explains what we do, and sign up for a call. That's the best place to get just a touch point with me, and we'll get on a call and see if it's even something worth exploring.
That's awesome. And you're seeing the pickleball trend is not regional. You're saying this blow up around the US?
Yeah, it's the fastest growing sport in the US, and it's actually getting a lot of traction worldwide right now. A lot of people always ask the question, like, is pickleball like gonna spike like cornhole or something and just die off? And if you just drive around your city, you'll see. I mean, even people listening, there's at this point in 2026, if you haven't heard of pickleball, then you haven't gotten outside. So,
Right. Right.
but it's, I'd say as far as the trajectory of where it's headed, it's still on the up and up for quite a while here.
All right. I think it's going to be my last question.
All
What's
good.
one pointer that your listeners here can improve their pickleball game?
Prove your pickleball game. All right, there is one drill that I really like to do. I mean, there's a lot of possible answers to this question, but
Spill it, Joe. Give us your secret.
like pickleball's smaller than tennis, so we call them hands battles. So it's happening very very quickly, and so if you want to get faster with your reaction time, I don't know if you know this about pickleball, but you can't stand in the non-volley zone and hit the ball out of the air.
The
So, but
kitchen, am I right, Joe? The
that's right.
kitchen.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, stay out of the kitchen, right? But for this drill, you actually break the rule. It's just a drill. We're not playing for points here, and you just hit backhand to backhand with the person like really close. I'm talking like within a foot of each other. Do that
Oh,
for 30 seconds. Move half a step back. Do that for another 30 seconds to a minute, and then by the time you get behind the kitchen line and you're in legal land, like the ball feels like it's going so slow and you have so much time.
love it, Joe.
There you
I'm
go. There's
doing
your
it.
there's your quick
I'm
tips.
doing it. Make myself a note here. So thanks, man. Well, Joe, I'm grateful that you'd be willing to share your story today. I so appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability and just the journey the Lord's had you on through the depths of the basement to just what God's doing now, and that you're so willing to pour out what you've learned with others and help them in that journey too. I think it's incredible, and I think it's a huge asset for a lot of those people that we work with to know like you're an option as a possible pathway for the future that the Lord might use court installation and maintenance as a way to provide for ministry. So I just appreciate your time and your generosity today, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Britton. Appreciate all you're doing, man, for this community of guys. It's so needed, and super grateful for your ministry.
Thanks, man.